It's Wednesday, April 12. In the headlines, Jamaicans are being urged to follow immigration laws of the countries they visit. In business news, MasterCard to deliver eco-certified cards by 2028. In regional news, no strict measures on Jamaicans going to Belize just yet. Internationally, leaked Pentagon documents under investigation. And in sports, Cricket West Indies names squad for Headley Week's Tri-Series. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Jamaicans are being urged to abide by the immigration laws governing the countries they visit. The advice comes from Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith. There have been reports of irregular migration of Jamaicans recently in Belize, Mexico, and Panama.
The government of Jamaica, however, does continue to consult at varying different levels with our partners in Belize, Mexico, and Panama. We are very concerned that Jamaicans are taking decisions to travel in circumstances that are extremely risky, and in some cases taking children with them, exposing them to dangerous situations including kidnapping, trafficking, and even death.
Minister Johnson-Smith said most Jamaican travelers to Belize, Mexico, and Panama travel for legitimate reasons.
We want to really ask Jamaicans to think while this matter is at this, I would say, comparatively small numbers when we look at some of the other persons within the region that are using Central American routes to try to transit elsewhere. While our numbers are relatively small, we do not want the immigration experience of our lawful travelers to get worse.
News came last week that Jamaicans will be required to show proof of hotel reservations when they travel to Belize. Reports are that Belize's government has made the move because of the increased number of visitors from Jamaica and Haiti. This week, the U.S. government and Panama announced increased security along the reported routes being taken,
which they have identified as a route for illegal migrants. And we are trying to be proactive and bring to the attention of Jamaicans that this is not a good decision to take. It is extremely risky for you personally, but it also affects the reputation of our passports, which we have been working hard at strengthening.
Jamaicans in need of loan from the Students' Loan Bureau should have access to a pool of $4.24 billion. The SLB has confirmed that it will continue to provide funding to students attending 34 approved tertiary institutions through 3 loan products during this fiscal year. This is $312 million more than the programmed sum for 2022-2023, according to the Jamaica Public Body's estimates of revenue and expenditure for the year ending March 2024. An overall $6.13 billion was budgeted for disbursement last year. The sum included arrears of $2.2 billion for payment to institutions by the end of the period on March 31. The Department of Correctional Services, DCS, will be placing greater focus on successfully reintegrating rehabilitated offenders into society. State Minister in the Ministry of National Security, Xavier Main, who made the disclosure, said this forms part of the government's thrust to reform the correctional services. The state minister was speaking during a recent official opening of the renovated Block B dormitory at the Rio Cobre Juvenile Correctional Center in Spanish Town, St. Catherine. As part of its rehabilitation program, the DCS provides literacy and numeracy education at the basic, intermediate, and advanced levels to inmates and wards. The DCS also facilitates various vocational skills, including carpentry, farming, metalwork, tailoring, auto mechanics, cosmetology, computer studies, home economics, plumbing, masonry, and electrical installation. A rehabilitation grant is available to persons who have been incarcerated for at least 1 year. And it's time now for the business report from Danita Rodney.
Global payment giant MasterCard recently announced that it is accelerating efforts to remove first-use PVC plastics from payment cards on its network by 2028 as part of its sustainability commitments. Starting January 1, 2028, all newly produced plastic payment cards will be made from more sustainable materials, including recycled or biosourced plastics, and approved through a certification program. The company also says it will support its global issuing partners through the transition away from virgin PVC to becoming eco-certified. Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Tuesday, April 11, the US dollar sold for an average of $153.16. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $113.08. The pound sterling traded for $188.83, and the euro sold for an average of $170. In JSE trading, the JSE index declined by 187 points. The junior market index advanced by 4 points. The combined market index declined by 132 points, and the All Jamaican Composite Index declined by 1,193 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 125 stocks, of which 50 advanced, 50 declined, and 25 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, AMT Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica Limited. Stocks declined for Access Financial Services Limited, Barita Investments Limited, and Cargo Handlers Limited. Trading firm were Blue Power Group Limited, Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited, and Community and Workers of Jamaica CCU Deferred Share. The overall volume leaders were Image Plus Consultants Limited, Wigton Wind Farm Limited Ordinary Shares, and Lindmers and Bars Limited with over 1 million units. In regional stocks, Zero Securities traded in Trinidad and Tobago. On the Barbuda Stock Exchange, Goddard Enterprises Limited was the sole security trading 10,000 shares. In regional business, the International Monetary Fund is predicting that Antigua and Barbuda will be the third fastest growing economy in Latin America and the Caribbean. More from ABS News.
Here's what we're looking at. Real GDP growth in Latin America and the Caribbean based on the IMF's projections for 2023. Of course, we're in April 2023. This is essentially annualized forecast by the IMF. Real GDP is GDP, nominal GDP accounted for inflation, so it is adjusted for inflationary impact. Guyana expected to, not surprisingly, lead growth in Latin America and the Caribbean for 2023, 37.2%. This is actually put at much higher based on other forecasts. The IMF is notoriously conservative in its forecasts. Some other forecasts like ECLAC and the IDB and the World Bank project this to be much higher than 37.2% for Guyana. But either way, it is by far and away the leader in growth in Latin America and the Caribbean in 2023. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, according to the IMF's forecast, comes in second in LAC at 6%, Antigua Barbuda 5.5%. Bearing in mind, put an asterisk beside this because the ECCB, that's the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, has projected growth of 9.4% for Antigua Barbuda in 2023. So the IMF's forecast, as we said, usually far more conservative than the other forecasters. Certainly more conservative than the ECCB, certainly more conservative than ECLAC, that's the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. So that's the picture for 2023. These are the top three leaders in real GDP growth. Let's look at a picture for 2024. Same Latin America and the Caribbean. Again, Guyana expected to grow even further in 2024, 45.3% in 2024. Antigua Barbuda now becomes the second fastest growing economy next year. 5.4%. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which was expected to grow by 6% this year, falls down to 5% in 2024. So certainly, again, significant conservatism in relation to the IMF's forecast. But even with that level of conservatism, Antigua Barbuda is expected to be one of the fastest growing economies in Latin America and the Caribbean.
In international business, we take a look at the International Monetary Fund's World Economic Outlook for April 2023. market data for oil prices steadied as the market waited for U.S. inflation data later in the day that will likely influence the Federal Reserve's policy on interest rate hikes. Brent crude gained 14 cents to $85.75 a barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude rose 10 cents to $81.63 a barrel. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In regional news, CEO of the Ministry of Immigration, Gilroy Middleton, says Jamaica is yet to respond to his country's decision to invoke Article 226A of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. The move will allow for the Minister of Immigration to immediately impose a visa requirement for Haitians and Jamaicans visiting Belize.
In respect of the Jamaican, the numbers are similar, but we haven't reached a tipping point as in respect of the Haitians. In respect of the Jamaicans, we've had some 1,673 Jamaicans entering via the PGIA primarily since January 2022 to date. Of that 1,673, we've had some 778 depart through one of our legal border crossings, so that left some 895 Jamaicans who have not exited through our northern border point of exit or any other of our formal border points. So the Haitians, 1,974 unaccounted Haitians, Jamaicans, 895 unaccounted Jamaicans since January 22. So that's about 50% less Jamaicans. Hence, we're not looking at that visa restriction for the Jamaicans. Honorable Eamon Courtney will be working on a subcommittee of cabinet in terms of the ministers, and then the CEOs and the technical individuals will be working and looking at the issues. In this case, the analysis show that it may relate to smuggling. So that will be reviewed, and it must be noted that we are not attempting to restrict any Jamaican or Haitian who intends to come to Belize legitimately. These individuals have rights under the Treaty of Chaguaramas, which will be respected and which, from an immigration point of view, we will facilitate. However, we must ensure the national security of Belize. There were some reports that we have added additional restrictions to Jamaicans. I must note that these reports are false. What Honorable Eamon Courtney noted is that the subcommittee will be formed to address immigration issues on a whole. The Ministry of Immigration will be liaising with the Ministry of Tourism from the perspective to look at how we could address these issues.
Speaking during a press brief on Wednesday, Jamaica's Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, said her team is waiting for additional data from the relevant authorities to get a clear picture of the situation.
We do not have PICA validated figures as yet, and when we have those, we will share them as well so that there can be a sense. Again, you can see that the numbers are not massive when you consider what's happening generally in Central and South America, but it is still cause for concern for us, relatively speaking, and one which we're seeking to bring to attention.
More money for local artists. That's the promise from the Trinidad and Tobago Copyright Collection Organization, following Tuesday's signing of a memorandum of understanding between the Twin Island and Jamaica, South Africa and Canada. Terry Brown Campbell has the details.
Local and regional artists now stand a better chance of receiving royalties for their work in Trinidad and Tobago and in the wider world outside. That's the word from President of the TNT Copyright Collection Organization's President, Aston Isaac.
This is a fantastic exercise, a fantastic opportunity for creatives in general. They now have the opportunity to have their works really tracked and really assessed in a way that we can really add that value in remunerating them for the use of their works and licensing.
The TTCCO signed a Memorandum of Understanding with the Jamaica Music Society and the South Africa Music Performing Rights on Tuesday. Mr. Isaac said in a few days a Memorandum of Understanding with Artistic Canada will be signed.
It also lends for the opportunity for creatives from Trinidad and Tobago who traditionally may have had content in that space or utilizing in Jamaica or in Canada or in South Africa, and they were not able to identify and track that content to be remunerated for such. Now they have that through this bilateral agreement, which speaks specifically to artist content.
The president of the TTCCO said his organization has 4,000 registered members with an extensive body of work. He added, with the MOUs, an additional 100,000 bodies of work have been added from Jamaica and more than 2 million pieces from Sampra in South Africa. Terry-Ann Brown-Campbell, TTD News.
Antigua and Barbuda's National Youth Parliament Association is seeking to forge closer linkages with its counterparts in the United Kingdom. More from ABS News.
The association is now in dialogue with the office of Sir Lindsay Hoyle, Speaker of the UK's House of Commons, with the hope of creating greater opportunities for the Youth Parliament. President of the association, Kamali Mannix, provided the update on the heels of Sir Lindsay's recent visit to Antigua and Barbuda.
One of the key things that happens in terms of youth work in the United Kingdom is every year you have a UK Youth Parliament, similar to us. They draw young people from the 650 constituencies across the United Kingdom and they bring them together. Wow. Since Sir Lindsay has become the Speaker of the UK House of Commons, he said, let's not just restrict it to Britain, but let's extend it to the overseas territories.
Annex was quick to seize the opportunity for Antigua and Barbuda to benefit.
During our discussion, I said, ooh, open door. Open door.
Yes.
I said to Lindsay, so you guys have extended it to the UK, you've extended it to the territories, you can also extend it to the Commonwealth.
He says Sir Lindsay not only welcomed the idea, but immediately gave the contact information for his office and gave approval for the commencement of discussions.
It's now for us to explore the opportunity of, one, participating in their youth parliament whenever it sits, and/or, I'm a favor of going to Britain to see the operations of their parliament.
In international news, the United States is investigating how dozens of top secret military documents ended up on the internet, some of which claims to show South Korea reaching a deal with Washington for weapons that could be used by Ukraine.
As one of its strongest allies claims that South Korea has been spied upon by the US, has sent the administration here into damage control overdrive. South Korea's defense minister has spoken with his US counterpart to reassure each other their alliance is as strong as ever, both pointing out they believe a number of the leaked documents are false.
Many of the disclosed documents are fabricated, and our joint assessments are consistent with each other.
But the government hasn't said if it believes the documents relating to South Korea are fake or genuine.
They purportedly relate to sensitive government conversations about the provision of artillery shells needed by Ukraine. Seoul doesn't supply them directly so as not to anger Moscow, but South Korean officials are alleged to have discussed ways of supplying shells indirectly through third countries.
The alleged discussions are not that revealing, but what's more concerning here is the fact that they might have come through eavesdropping.
We believe that if it's true, it would be a very disappointing situation that damages the trust-based alliance between Korea and the US.
It's also led to questions about how the security-conscious administration of President Yoon Suk-yeol could allow itself to be spied upon, and whether his decision to move his office away from the traditional Blue House compound allowed a security lapse.
When he got elected last year, unpreparedly moved out of that long-established presidential office and moved to this current former military headquarters. So the opposition party has criticized among many other reasons, the security issues.
It's all the more embarrassing coming just 2 weeks before a long-anticipated summit in Washington with US President Joe Biden, seen as a reward for South Korea's unstinting loyalty, when the two men will be smiling for the cameras in spite of allegations that one ally has been spying on the other. Rob McBride, Al Jazeera, Seoul.
In sports, Cricket West Indies CWI has named the squads for the upcoming Headley Weeks Tri-Series. Team Headley, named in honor of George Headley, will be captained by Joshua Da Silva, the wicket-keeper batter. Team Weeks, named in honor of Sir Everton Weeks, will be led by Alec Athanes, the left-handed top-order batter. The two teams have been drawn from the leading performers in the 2023 West Indies Championship and those deemed to be on the fringe of the Test team. Boxing for Sakima Mullings, in an interview with the PBCJ sports team, is stating his intention to rebuild the support, enthusiasm and success of the sport as the boxer and coach faces his last year of his master's degree in sports management. His studies are being done at the University of the West Indies and they end this year. We now join Maya Chung for the final in a two-part feature on Sakima Mullings' intentions to bring back boxing a greater scale in his home country.
The team that Sakima is currently working with include IBA certified coaches who are themselves working towards breathing new life into the sport of boxing here in Jamaica. One of these people is Felipe Sanchez, who in February of this year took a contingent of Jamaican boxers to the Dominican Republic to compete, where, according to Sanchez, the vibrancy of the DR boxing sector is where Jamaicans want their boxing sector to return to.
When COVID came, remember that we couldn't even be speaking at this distance. You know, we'd be doing a fatal talk. So boxing died completely. And after it died, the people who really love the sport and can't live without practicing it get together, and I include Sakima in this because we said, hey, we need to get our different boxers together, at least to spar, keep them sharp. You know, Sakima's a superstar. Anywhere you go with Sakima, people go to him and be like, oh, Sakima from the Contender, you're my favorite fighter. So seeing that entrenchment with the youth, and furthermore in Olympic Garden where they look up to Sakima, like when Sakima coaches them, they're like, I'm learning from the best, right? You know, the best fighter, not the coach, he's a fighter. So I would definitely say that he has a lot of influence. The children and fighters, older fighters as well, all look up to him. I think Sakima just always loves the sport and is always trying to keep it alive. For example, a testimony I can give is at Sugar's Gym, we did a Labor Day project which he spearheaded.
This is
in Olympic Gardens. I think this is 2021, don't it? Or is it 2022? 2022, right? And we came together, we had like a family sports day, we had a little bit of sparring, you know, a little bit of fun, and we got to renovate the outside part of the gym because it was in a bad state at the beginning, and this is like a second phase of renovations. And, you know, other than that, I'm just coming to the gym and train. You know, you come in and train, and it's different, you know, when someone is when you see Sakima teaching them, he's teaching them not amateur stuff, he's also teaching them, you know, some high-level IQ, like, this is how you close off the ring. You have to think when you fight. It's not just... So I think, you know, other than just having the positive mentorship skills that he has, I think that his professional fighting is a big asset, and he's showing the youth, hey guys, I've been through everything. I've been a champion, I've been on TV. So for them to see that happening and for them to get that direct guidance, you can see it in their eyes how they listen and how engaged they are.
The men say that boxers who want to find success will inevitably end up leaving the country to fulfill their desires in the sport if things do not change. Mr. Mullings wants boxing training gyms that are child-friendly as well as safe for children interested in the sport.
Ultimate, then from there it takes funding. You know, so there is a 5-pillar system where there has to be recruitment of boxers, there has to be recruitment of coaches, there has to be regular competition, there has to be
funding support.
Funding and support, and then within that also you have to have all of the auxiliary with the referees, with the technical officials, and the and all the other officials that are going to make boxing happen.
Mr. Sanchez added this.
I agree completely with Sakimo, and I think one of the most important things is that you need to build good boxers. So you have to start from the amateur levels. If you don't have a grassroots movement, if your amateur boxers are not good, then you don't get good professional boxers, right? And the ultimate goal of an amateur boxer is to go to the Olympics. So I think without no coaches, there's no boxing. But then there needs to be funding. So I think once boxing is in the limelight, once there are shows and promotions, this will incentivize promoters to come out and put on a boxing show. It'll make the youths, the children be, you know what, I'm going to try boxing. So I think those are two crucial steps that are necessary. And in my own experience, we traveled with a 71 kilometer with Team Jamaica to Domrep to a competition that's been going on for 42 years.
When did they
This was February. This was February 20th, and 10 different countries went. So, you know, just like in New York and America, they have golden gloves where they discovered Muhammad Ali and these guys. In Domrep, this tournament, we need to be exposed to more of these tournaments. We need to have more elite, high-level fighters to take there and represent Jamaica on a high scale.
And the coaches have the support of the boxers. According to the #1 ranked heavyweight boxer in the country, Jermaine Breezy Richards, after the decimation of COVID-19, the sport needs this to kickstart the sector towards rebirth.
Boxing organization really start believing in the boxer them, the Jamaican boxer them.
And that's the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. You can follow us on our social media pages at PBC Jamaica. Thank you so much for watching.